As of this filming, I would say that I'm about halfway through editing the complete Eye of Argon series. It's hard to estimate because the chapter length is extremely variable, but I can already safely say this is by far the most elaborate series of videos I have ever done on my channel. I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything like this on this level again, maybe, but probably not for a little while. But it has been fun. I thought it would be a fun idea to do this kind of clutch cargo thing with Hero Forge models, and it has been fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun. And I feel like it is kind of apt that it should be the Eye of Argon, because my original series of the Eye of Argon, back in 2012 or 13 or whenever that happened, was at the time my most elaborate series of videos, because they were the first to have complete scores. And now most of my videos have that, so I guess that shows how far I've come, I guess. But I had always wanted to do a remake of Eye of Argon, even before the old channel got torched, as long as I started shooting with green screens and remaking other old things like My Inner Life, of course. Eye of Argon was something that had been on the radar as something to go back to. And I keep coming back to the Eye of Argon in other ways as well. I had tossed around the idea of running a Dungeons & Dragons game set in the city of Gorzom, and I still might do that. That might be a lot of fun. But I just keep coming back to this story. And I want to be careful in the way I approach it, because when it was first published, the author, Jim Tice, got a lot of flack over this story. Even though he was only about 16 or so when he wrote it. And I don't want to get all high and mighty and say that we shouldn't have made fun of this story, of someone's creative vision. That would be hypocritical of me. I have made fun of this story on 2 occasions now. But I think we should leaven our ridicule with a bit of kindness, a bit of compassion, dare I say even a bit of gratitude. Because Jim Tice created something that brought a lot of people joy. And think about the phrase make fun. Make fun. There's nothing in there that making fun of something shouldn't have to be mean. It shouldn't have to be cruel. It should be something that we can do with joy and celebration in our hearts. And I believe this story. I believe that the Eye of Argon deserves celebration. And that's what I hope these videos have been. Because the thing is, I genuinely like the Eye of Argon. Both as a piece of so bad it's good trash, and just as a moderately compelling adventure story. I have read so many stories in my quest to find interesting old pulp adventure fiction that is on a technical level better than this, but that is completely unmemorable. And the Eye of Argon is definitely memorable. It will stick with you. And, you know, I as I'm sure you can tell from all these old pulp fantasy and sci-fi readings I've been doing, I enjoy these old campy genre conventions. And I like this kind of beefcake sword and sorcery adventure. I like the decadent desert city. I like the cowardly gelatinous prince and his sniveling advisor. I like the crazy chanting cultists and their big gnarly idol. I like the dungeon crawl of the last couple chapters and the kind of get out of here at any cost momentum it builds up. I like the cursed ruby that turns into this horrible leech monster. Grigner himself I could take or leave, but I like Mrifk and his surly beard. And, you know, these are all common tropes in this kind of story, but I appreciate that Jim Tice manages to squeeze them all into a fairly compact and short adventure narrative. It's got everything I want except for a big, stupid dragon puppet. It's like a greatest hits album for its genre. And it has an ending, so that's worth something. As a side note, I could have done without the attempted sexual assault scene, and in the story's sexual politics in general aren't great, but, you know, if you've read any fantasy fiction that's older than 10 years, you are probably aware that these are problems endemic to the genre. Find me a piece of vintage fantasy fiction that isn't at least a little bit problematic. I dare you. But I want to celebrate this story in spite of and because of its problems. I think the shtick of the angry critic on YouTube who is mad at the piece of fiction he is reviewing, and I will not name any names here, is obviously played out, but I also think it's kind of disingenuous. Because if I am spotlighting something on my channel, if I am devoting the time and energy it takes to make a video, a series of videos about this thing, I am tacitly admitting that the thing is worth my time and worth your time to know about. I am sharing it with you. And that's what I want my channel to be. A celebration of these stories. I have no interest in ripping these stories a new one. I am not interested in tearing down an amateur writer. I want to celebrate what they've done, and I want to create a museum of literary mutations. There was a moment in the author's notes of My Inner Life when Jen recounts how somebody left a comment saying, "Please stop, you're hurting everyone." And she kind of deliberately brushes past the hyperbole and says, "Show me how I hurt that person. Show me how I forced them to read my story." And she's honestly right, because no one had to read My Inner Life. If it were that painful, I would not have subjected myself to it twice now. Even the scene where they're drinking pee is at least kind of funny, right? And, I'm not going to pretend I'm too good to get any kind of enjoyment out of this story. I read it on YouTube twice now, of my own free will. But even, as a side note here, even if I genuinely did hate a story, I still would not be justified in, bombarding the author with abuse and bullying and anything like that. But it feels that extra bit disingenuous and hypocritical to do that for a story that you have actually enjoyed and you've gotten a lot of fun from. And unfortunately, that seems to be what happened to Jim Tice. People were too mean about this story, and he got burned and he never wrote anything creatively ever again. And that is a terrible tragedy. Not just for him, for his, creative ambitions being crushed and the, pain of all that he must have gone through, but also that's a tragedy for us, because I would have loved to read more Grigner adventures. I would love if he wrote a sci-fi story or a horror story. That would have been so much fun. I could have gotten so much content out of that. But Jim Tice died in 2002 at a far too young age. And this means that there is no chance, no matter how astronomically small, that I will ever meet him. But if I did meet him, I would say thank you. I would shake his hand. I would congratulate him. I would offer to buy him a flagon of ale at the nearest disreputable tavern. Because he created something really amazing, I think. He wrote the best kind of bad fantasy story. Bad fantasy stories, especially those written by teenagers, are a dime a dozen. But I think that Jim Tice created something really exceptional here with the Eye of Argon, something that still resonates, something that is compelling both because of and in spite of its flaws. And I think that deserves celebration. And that's what I hope I've done here. Thank you.
This exhibit was made possible by the generous support of Break System BSE, Zanazira, Michael Fattori, and Zachary Snowden-Smith, and viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting the Mutant Museum. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being you.